Okay, Jason, what about the president's comments and how this all fits together?
Well, one thing he said today is he talked about black crime a little bit, which I was happy to see. He said black criminals should be prosecuted, which is helpful. But then he attributed that black criminality, he suggested it stems from poverty or a racist criminal justice system, which is nonsense. The black crime rate in 1960 was lower than it is today. Was there less racism or less poverty in 1960? This is about black behavior. It needs to be addressed head-on. It's about attitudes towards the criminal justice system in these neighborhoods where young black men have no sense of what it means to be a male or what it means to be black. And he needs to talk about that head-on, not dismiss it as a product of poverty or racism, which is a dodge. We don't have all the evidence, and I'm hesitant to try and litigate this in the press. But there's also this false narrative being pushed out there by folks like Michael Eric Dyson and Sharpton and the rest of the hustlers, is that black men live in fear of being shot by cops in these neighborhoods. That, too, is nonsense. I know something about growing up black and male in the inner city, and it's not that hard to avoid getting shot by a cop. They pull you over, you answer their questions, you're on your way. The real difficulty is not getting shot by other black people if you are a young black man in these neighborhoods. And again, that is something we need to talk about more. Cops are not the problem. Cops are not producing these black bodies in the morgues every weekend in Chicago, in New York and Detroit and so forth. That's not cops. Those are other black people shooting black people.
What about the president's intervention here? He says he doesn't want to tip the scales, but the Attorney General is heading to Ferguson.
I've talked to some former federal prosecutors in the Department of Justice, and they find this very odd, this parallel investigation going on. They say normally, if the feds sit back, they let the local authorities do their job. If they see something amiss, then they intervene. That has not been alleged here. Or if the police department has a history of civil rights violations, then the Department of Justice might intervene early. Again, that has not been alleged here. I think this is a parallel investigation being done purely for optics. Political pressure that the president is feeling from his left to be shown doing something, I think that's what's driving it.
Kirsten, and the actions of the Missouri governor, we should point out a Democrat who had talked to the president today, calling in the National Guard. He lifted the curfew tonight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was under the understanding that the governor actually had asked the president to get the Justice Department involved. Is that not correct? I mean,
that doesn't mean he has to say yes.
Well, I mean, I think if the governor asks you to do that to help, I think that's the appropriate thing. And I think that and the governor calling in the National Guard, I think is maybe a little bit of an overreaction. This militarization has been part of the problem, but if that's what he feels like,
militarization. If the Klan was burning down these neighborhoods the way they were in the 20s and 30s, would you consider the National Guard a militarization of taking care of the process?
I would consider that when you have people peacefully gathered and haven't done anything, and you have cops coming in basically military gear, I don't think that that's appropriate, and I think it incites violence. I think it scares people.
Last word, Charles.
Look, I think what the president did, I couldn't quite understand why he got out there and spoke today. He didn't add anything, but there is a kind of a moral equivalence. It's not the kind Eric Dyson is talking about. It's where on the one hand he says, you know, if you riot and you use guns and you attack the police, it serves only to raise tensions and stir chaos. Well, that's an instrumental way of criticizing it. You're not going to achieve your goals. What he should be saying is it's wrong. We're a democratic society. You don't do that. And I'd like to hear him say that ringingly, rather than saying on the one hand, on the other hand. We really have the law on the one hand, we have rioters on the other, and it isn't a hard choice between them.
If you are a black business owner, if you are a law-abiding representative, member of this community, which are most of the members of this community, you want the National Guard there protecting you.
You don't want people in military gear.
These neighborhoods are not over-policed.
You jumped on me about my comment about militarization.
Yes.
You don't want people